Making headlines tonight. An apology from the Education Ministry on the Inter-American Development Bank regarding a survey administered at some schools. Consumers warned to brace for an increase in prices for meat and animal products. Jailed former government minister Donville Inniss has his appeal against his money laundering conviction dismissed. And coming up in sports, Deacons on course to repeat as men's volleyball champs.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. An apology tonight from the Ministry of Education, which has accepted responsibility for the exposure of some secondary school children to offensive questions in a survey. The apology follows one last night from the Inter-American Development Bank, the body which administered the survey. The IDB said the Education Ministry had objected to some of the questions in the survey prior to its administration, but they were inadvertently left in. There has been a public outcry about some of the survey questions which pertain to sexuality, gender identity and substance abuse, among other things. Chief Education Officer Dr. Ramona Archer Bradshaw says what has happened has left them in no doubt that they took too much for granted in not vetting the final survey.
The ministry now assures all stakeholders that the offensive scripts will be destroyed and there will be no further use of the survey without our explicit and complete scrutiny. More importantly, the ministry has already started the process of reforming its own policy on data collection in our schools to ensure that incidents such as this are never repeated. The interests, safety, and the protection of the rights of our children remain our top priority.
The Chief Education Officer also says they immediately stopped the survey after issues were raised by some parents of students at 5 secondary schools where the survey was being conducted. She says meetings were then held with representatives of the IDB.
In these meetings, the IDB representatives acknowledged that in a number of meetings held previously to discuss the implementation of the survey, representatives of the Ministry of Education had expressed strong concerns about both the length and content of the survey document, and it was agreed that there would be modifications to the document. The statement issued last night by the IDB speaks to this. In order to further address the adverse reaction to this issue, the Ministry of Education has scheduled meetings for today with principals of secondary schools, as well as with parents of the first-year students who participated in the study. Be assured that this ministry will take whatever action is necessary to protect our children.
In spite of the incident, the Chief Education Officer says the ministry maintains confidence in the overall purpose and aim of the project. One of the parties named in connection with the survey, Code.org, is clarifying its involvement. In an email, the organization says that over the past 2 days, it has seen press reports related to Code.org's purported role in the pre-test given to certain students in Barbados that contain questions many found objectionable. It says the public reporting on this issue has been inaccurate. Code.org's Director of Marketing and Communications, Min Yu, says the pre-test was not formulated, reviewed, or sanctioned by Code.org. The Director of Marketing says Code.org did not organize or provide personnel to supervise the pre-test examinations, and that Code.org has not seen and does not have access to any of the pre-test results or data. Code.org says the pretest was designed, formulated and administered by a third party hired by the Inter-American Development Bank, which is also responsible for the overall management of the Code Caribbean project in Barbados. Code.org is partnering with the IDB for the Code Caribbean project. Code.org says its role in the Barbados implementation of the project is limited to delivering the computer science curriculum to be used through its online platform, which is free and used by millions of students worldwide, providing computer science professional learning for teachers and providing general consultation related to the implementation of the computer science curriculum in schools and scaling of the program across Barbados. Local farmers can expect to pay more for feed starting Monday, and consumers can brace for an increase in meat and other animal products. That's the word tonight from Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul. He says Pinnacle Feeds has forwarded correspondence indicating it will have to raise the price of feed because of the increasing cost of inputs.
It means, therefore, that the likelihood that the price of major meat products produced in Barbados will actually increase.
Mr. Paul says negotiations are ongoing on the issue.
We will be discussing between the farmers and the feed company. We have to look and see in this environment what can be done in order to mitigate against any increase in the price of feed. And certainly we will be having also to possible discussions with the Minister of Agriculture to see what the government can do to assist. But we are in a very difficult environment, and the production costs continue to increase for producers in this country. And all we can do is try to live within what we find.
The fintech industry could easily become Barbados' main economic driver. That's what Chief Technology Officer of Fintech, Kurt Prasad, told CBC News on the sidelines of the inaugural Global Fintech Conference, which began yesterday.
This absolutely could be our second industry or our number one industry, right? Surpassing even tourism. Because Barbados has a few characteristics that we think lends to the development of that industry. It's a very stable economy, right? We have great weather, we have friendly people, we have great infrastructure in terms of connectivity, Wi-Fi and stuff like that, right? And it has a welcoming government in terms of being open to the ideas of governance and positive regulations that would drive an industry like that.
Barbados is already attracting investors. Paystone, which is Canada's largest independent payment processor, is expanding here.
We decided to have our next office being in Barbados and looking to hire our next 50 employees before the end of 2023 on the island. We believe that the Barbados economy right now is actually just getting out of the COVID impact, and with the current government we see a lot of support, like locally and internationally, for where the Prime Minister is actually looking to attract big employers to come on the island. For us, when we look at Barbados specifically, we look at all the positives that come with it, such as very qualified talent pool, and that qualified local talent pool is what we're looking to tap into. So this is why we have identified Barbados as our next office expansion plan, and we're looking to do more here.
And it's not just regional and international startups and businesses that are here for fintech, but government officials from other Caribbean countries are also present.
We in Bermuda felt it was important to support the Fintech Island Conference. We want to be part of moving fintech from the fringes of society into mainstream operations. We believe in Bermuda that we have a business ecosystem that allows companies to thrive. And so any support, ideas, collaboration that we can have in terms of propelling the fintech industry forward, we'll be open to supporting and engaging with relevant stakeholders.
A senior Barbados Light and Power official says the company has considered that the likelihood that Barbadians' energy usage habits could change significantly in the coming years, with a pivot towards greater use of renewable energy sources and potentially lower energy consumption as well. Speaking on day 12 of the Fair Trading Commission's hearings into a rate increase application by the power company, Manager of Regulatory Affairs Dr. Adrian Carter said this is why Light and Power is seeking to establish the Clean Energy Transition Rider to help deal with any issues as a result of that transition.
We believe that that is a mechanism that will help us to again facilitate the renewable infrastructure needed really to implement this policy, the policy objective. We would have applied for that mechanism back in 2020. and we are currently awaiting a decision from the regulator on that mechanism. But we believe that mechanism is one mechanism, maybe of many others that we may have to put our heads together and come up with that can help in terms of how we sustainably facilitate this policy objective going forward.
Meanwhile, Dr. Carter has also revealed that the power company has seen a dip in sales as a result of a greater number of people utilizing renewable and lower energy options. At the time, he was responding to a series of questions from Barbados Renewable Energy Association representative Stephen Worm.
It can, and it do have an impact on our sales currently. But what I would say is that given the foresight of the commission here, and through consultation, we have been able to implement a mechanism, what we call the buy all sell all billing arrangement, which have helped us to really integrate renewable energy into the grid more efficiently. I can tell you, without this mechanism in place, there would be significant challenges in terms of financing the network for all of us.
Former Government Minister Donville Inniss has lost his appeal before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit to overturn a conviction for laundering bribes. The court ruled in a 6-page document that Inniss's argument that there was insufficient evidence for his money laundering convictions was unavailing and without merit. The appeals court also rejected arguments that the jury instructions were faulty. Inniss, the former Minister of Industry, was sentenced last year to 2 years in prison for laundering bribes he received from a Barbadian insurance company through a U.S. bank. Evidence presented at trial showed in 2015 and 2016, Inniss took part in a scheme to launder into the U.S. approximately $36,000 in bribes he had received from executives of the insurance company to help secure 2 government contracts. Coming up, a government minister calls for the U.S. embargo against Cuba to be lifted. The embargo on Cuba must stop. The clarion call was made by Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office, Dr. Chantal Munro-Knight. She was delivering remarks at the rededication of the monument in commemoration of the 46th anniversary of the bombing of the Cubana Airlines Flight 455. Her audience comprised officials from Cuba, Venezuela, and Guyana. Dr. Munro-Knight said they must continue to be vocal on the issue.
As citizens of the world with a space and with a voice, must be able to say strongly that we will not tolerate. We will not tolerate the injustice. As Barbadians, we say the unfairness of it, because it is just blatantly unfair. There is no rationale for the continued embargo of Cuba. And as Barbadians, and as the government, we will continue to join with our CARICOM brothers and sisters to use our voice in whatever forum we have to say to the world it is wrong and it should stop.
Cuban Ambassador His Excellency Sergio Pastrana, in condemning the killing of the 73 people on the flight, called it an act of terrorism which will never be forgotten.
Unfortunately, those who masterminded this terrible attack not only never paid for it, had been trained and were vetted by the powers that be at the time, and went on and are documented to have taken part in promoting the violence in Central America, in promoting the exchange of illegal drugs for illegal money to buy weapons against Iran. They have been convicted and they have been pardoned.
Meanwhile, efforts are on to have October 6 designated as International Day Against Terrorism. Several non-governmental organizations under the umbrella coalition of civil society organizations held an international media conference to push their case to the United Nations. The coalition includes the Barbadian-Cuban Friendship Association, the Clement Payne Movement, and the Israel Level Foundation. Attorney at law Lalu Hanneman explained the rationale for the move.
On the 1st of July 2016, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution, number 70 of 291, entitled United Nations Global Counterterrorism Strategy Review, and outlined therein the international community's unwavering determination to prevent and combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, as well as the United Nations' ongoing commitment to actively pursue a comprehensive range of anti-terrorism initiatives, measures, programs, and policies. In furtherance of this resolution, and in the week of commemorative activities to mark the 1976 bombing of the Cubana Airways flight over Barbados, we, the coalition of civil society organizations mentioned previously, meet to make public our proposal to the United Nations organization that the United Nations should declare an International Day Against Terrorism.
Days into CPR Awareness Month, the Heart and Stroke Foundation is continuing its drive to not only educate Barbadians but offer training. Medical Director of the Emergency Cardiac Care Department, Dr. Anne-Marie Cruikshank, along with Emergency Medical Technician Shawnetson Rose, were here at the CBC for a lesson and interactive session with staff. They were privileged to an overview of conducting CPR in children and adults and of the Heart Saver one-day course offered by the organization. Dr. Cruikshank says it is a thorough standardized course with an optional test and certification.
I think it's worth the $150. The manual is yours to keep. You get the card valid for 2 years, and then you can come back and renew the card in 2 years' time. You get a modified version of the course when you come back. As I said, the guidelines change every 5 years, so that we encourage people, even if you don't come back within the 5 years, come back again in the next 5 years to see if there's any changes in the CPR, because CPR is always changing. You don't want to be using outdated guidelines. That's something that's very important. And we know that over time, you forget. So that's why it's important to come back every 2 years to get a refresher course.
Dr. Cruikshank reminds in some cases, CPR cannot be administered as there are do not resuscitate or DNR orders.
Not so much in Barbados, but in the other countries, like the first world countries, some persons have do not resuscitate orders. They've gone to their lawyer, they've gone to certain, healthcare professionals and decided that if they have to die, they want to die, they don't want any intervention. And if they have to come to hospital, they've told the doctors and nurses they don't want CPR performed on them. So yes, as Shawnette said, DNR do not resuscitate orders. But other than that, you can do CPR on any person.
It's sports time. We head over to the sports studio and say good evening to Anne-Marie Burke.
Good evening to you, Shane. We begin with news of volleyball. Burger King Clapham Toners and defending men's champions Deacons have taken control of the Goddard Enterprises Limited Division 1 volleyball title races. When the action continued last night at the Wildy Gym, Toners blanked Pan American Insurance Warriors to move to top of the women's standings on 35 points. Deacons women are on 31 points after stopping Phoenix Security Services Carlton. On the men's side, Akeem Marsh and Akil Oxley powered Deacons men past Theo Williams Foundation United, while Progressive brushed aside Stars Volleyball Club in straight sets. Deacons top the standings with 20 points. Calmer and Progressive are on 16, followed by Foundation with 13 and Stars on 5. Here's a look at last night's action. We serve off with ladies' action. Carlton in the red up against Deacons, both teams needing a win to get closer to the top position in the standings. Carlton gifted the free ball, so will they capitalize? Sure bet. Tiara Johnson plays the space in the middle. Now, Deacons had already won the first 2 sets at 25-18, 25-9, so Carlton was fighting back. Both teams giving it their all to keep the ball alive. Carlton looking more organized. Johnson goes for it again, but not effective. It's picked up. So could Deacons go for it? Julia Lewis goes, but the double block is effective. The ball still in play. Johnson on the right to set it up, and she spikes through back midcourt effectively as they took the third set at 25-21. But Deacons met business. Anis. Deacons serve. Carlton picks it up. Lewis going for the dink. Not effective. Carlton setting up again, but instead it's a free ball to Deacons. And here comes Lewis from the left. That's a winner. Actually, Deacons women were able to take the final set at 25-18 and the game 3-1 to be just 3 points behind leaders Clapham Toners with 31 points. And Toners rose to the top of the table with an easy straight sets win over Warriors at 25-9, 25-13, 25-14 to amass 34 points. To men's action now, Progressive in blue taking on Stars. And as you can see, veteran Fabian Cox has that spike in power. Progressive with the serve. Stars picks it up, sets up Darion Hurley, who spikes down through midcourt. Stars with the serve now, and Rainier Grace receives it, but the Stars wall was solid and they make good the play. But Progressive was not about playing games, and Rico Bradford ensured the message was sent, as they won at 27-25, 25-23, 25-19. And to the men on top of the table, Deacons in the bright green, bolstered by college player Akil Oxley, who delivers his ace. Deacons serve opponents Foundation United, looking to set up the play. Can they make it count? No, it's picked up by Deacons. And here's Oxley again. Easy does it. Foundation United had some shining moments, power from by the net. But it was Deacons with the 25-18, 25-21, 25-21 win, who are now table leaders with 20 points from 4 wins and 1 loss. The finals are set for the Barbados Cricket Legends Cup, as last night the Gordon Greenwich 11 booked their place with a 12-run win via the DLS method over the Sagarfi Sobers 11. Playing at Kensington Oval, half-century from Craig Brathwaite and Kevin Wickham, along with a 4-wicket haul from Kamari Boyce, cemented the Sagardon 11's victory. After winning the toss, the Sagardon 11 made 236 for 7 off their 42 overs. Skipper Craig Brathwaite hit a top score of 67 off 81 balls with 3 fours, while Wickham made 61 off 56 deliveries, including 6 fours and 2 sixes. Off-spinner Romario Graves was the leading wicket taker with 3 for 39 off 9 overs. Captain Joma Warrican took 2 for 44 and Keon Harding 2 for 50. Here's a look at that innings. A bit of rain at the start, but with the wet conditions not forcing much of a delay, the Gordon Greenwich 11 set to task. Skipper Craig Brathwaite leading from the front. Looking to get runs on the board quickly, Brathwaite was wasting no time in getting the boundaries. On the other end was the other Brathwaite, Cheyenne, and he too was making the most of his deliveries, sending this through deep square leg. The very next ball was given the same treatment, as the Brathwaite opening pair was solidifying their team's position. Cheyenne actually found the boundary 7 times in his stay, seemingly looking to go the extra mile with this one, but not quite connecting the ball in the right place, but it had enough to go for 4. Even with the introduction of spin through Jomel Warrican, Cheyenne was still on his game, sweeping this one to the ropes. But then it all came to an end. Warrican gets him. LBW. Cheyenne Brathwaite goes for 37. The score for Greenwich 11, 66 for 1. That brought Kevin Wickham to the crease, and he too wasted no time to get in on the runs fast. Nicely timed and placed. With the score on 98 for 1, there was another rain interruption and the covers were brought on. So the teams got time for a regroup and the game was reduced to 42 overs. Back to the field, and Wickham picked up where he left off, introducing the match's first 6. Wickham was really in business mode. Here he goes again. The fielder chases after it, but it's just too quick. The fielder lucky that the rails are retractable. Wickham had 6 boundaries in his knock. This one, the special one, as not only does he edge it to the ropes, but it brought up his 50. Well played. On the other end, Craig Brathwaite was still there, and he too would raise his bat, this single taking him to the half-century mark. Wickham pressed on with a second big one, hit high and hard. But he would soon be gifted his walking papers into the hands of Keon Harding off the bowling of Warrican. 61 for Wickham. The partnership with Brathwaite yielded 100 runs, the score now 166 for 2. But like a true captain, Brathwaite continued to lead from the front, smoothly executed, and it runs away. He lost a second player though, as Mikhail Austin added a single before he was caught by Shamar Springer off the bowling of Romario Graves. It's now 171 for 3. Demario Richards announced his arrival at the crease in a big way, straight driven into the stands. He then turned this delivery to the boundary. But after just adding 16, he was back in the pavilion, striking out but firmly into the grasp of Naeem Young. Graves, your bowler again, 191 for 4. Teron Gibson was next in, and with 2 big steps, he will go hard enough to clear the ropes. That's 6. but Gibson will be wicket number 5, caught by Zidane Clark in the easiest of ways, 204 for 5. Skipper Craig Baffett will be next, not the way he expected the play to go, caught by Tariq Worrell for 67, Greenwich 11 208 for 6. And Amari Goodridge will then be the last wicket to fall for the Greenwich 11, bowled by Keon Harding for 4. His teammates Akeem Jordan and Jaden Roberts will go on to be knotted on 19 and 4 respectively, as Sir Gordon Greenwich 11 would put 236 for 7 on the board. And set a revised target of 242 in 42 overs. The Sagari 11 were bowled out for 229 in 39.5 overs. Rashawn Worrell top scored with 54, including 5 fours and 2 sixes. Boyce took 4 for 30, while Javed Leacock took 2 for 29, and Shem Holder 2 for 36, being the other main contributors. The Sir Gordon 11 will now take on the Sir Charles Griffith 11 at Kensington Oval tomorrow in the final from 1:30 p.m.
Despite interventions by government capping fuel prices to bring some relief, the Minister of Energy and Business, Kerry Simmons, is unsure about next month's prices. He shared his concern during a community meeting at the Alexandra School on investing in renewable energy.
We came to a point on the last 2 or 3 occasions that I would have signed the approvals for the price of petrol, that the price of petrol was below the cap level that we had in Barbados. The prices were falling. I cannot say to you with any form of conviction right now that next month, this time, the prices will not once again be at the level of the cap or even higher than the cap. And that puts government in the awkward position now of having to continue to lose revenue while we try to protect the consumer. And it stands to reason, I think, that government cannot forever be in a position where you are hemorrhaging foreign exchange in order to protect the consumer. So we have to urge the consumer now to take those steps to protect yourself. And one of those steps is to invest in this renewable energy process.
Duty concessions on electric and hybrid vehicles have been welcomed by multi-brand dealers, courtesy Garage Limited. But as the company rolls out its 100th anniversary year-long celebrations, Regional General Manager Nicholas Mackey told a media conference supply chain challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine have been placing immense pressure on the operations at the Wilde-based company. Trevor Thorpe reports.
Demand outstrips the availability of hybrid and electric vehicles, and Regional General Manager Nicholas Mackey said there has been a significant increase in interest shown by the public.
Availability is a bit of a challenge. I mean, we have sold, I think, probably 100 electric cars over the last year, which is a pretty significant achievement. But when you consider that there are over 120,000 vehicles on the road that have to be changed over the next decade, the government is planning to not allow the importation of non-electric cars after 2030. So there's about 8 years to change quite a lot of cars on the island. So the 100 or 200 that have been changed now over the last year is quite small.
Divisional People Manager, Automotive and Talent Development, Stephanie Catling Birmingham, said monthly activities would form the core of the year-long celebrations and will include the launching of a public campaign and the finalizing of a memorandum of understanding with the Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology.
Catch the courtesy chauffeur. And what does that look like? Every Wednesday, starting from the 19th of October, a clue will be sent out via the airwaves as well as on our social platforms to the public, inviting them to find the courtesy chauffeur.
Regional Financial Controller Andres Green said while the company is happy with its past, it has aligned itself with government's renewable energy goals and is self-sufficient in energy.
We're also investing heavily in the training of staff. We've made significant investments in acquiring the technology and training staff towards being able to service a lot of the new technologies that are coming. And these investments will continue as we prepare to ensure that staff have the necessary skills to service these vehicles, provide the service which we've become quite well known for. As the technology changes quite quickly, we'll also need to ensure that the staff are actually trained and able to manage these new technologies as they come.
Activities marking the 100th anniversary will begin at the Wilde Complex next week. Trevor Thorpe for the Business Report.
All right, heading back on over to the sports studio with Anne-Marie again.
And some cricket news. New Zealand women completed a 4-1 series victory over the West Indies women by winning the 5th and final T20 today by 5 wickets at the Viv Richards Stadium in Antigua. Chasing just 102, New Zealand took it down to the final ball, reaching 102 for 5 in 20 overs. Maddie Green was left not out on 32, while Amelia Kerr hit 26. Earlier, a half-century from captain Hayley Matthews was the only bright spark for the West Indies women as they suffered another batting collapse, scoring 101 for 8 in their 20, led by Matthews' patient 56 off 54 balls. Her knock included 3 4s and 2 6s to be the only double-digit contributor for the host. Captain of the White Ferns, Susie Bates, took 3 for 10, while there were 2 wickets apiece for Fran Jonas and Eden Carson. Now, world-class striker Lionel Messi says November's FIFA World Cup in Qatar will surely be his last. The Argentina forward has played at 4 World Cups.
That's our news. Good night and be good. Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.